And welcome to The Verdict. I'm Kent Myers. As you know, we meet every week to talk about interesting subjects and topical issues. Mick Cornett's not with us today. He's out doing city business, but I'll try to hold down the fort while he's gone. Today we're going to be talking about jobs in Oklahoma. We know that we read daily about layoffs taking place in certain companies, certain industries, and we read about industries moving in. We have today a fellow that I believe to be the premier expert in jobs in Oklahoma and job placement and human resource management. His name is Jim Farris. He's a former Air Force fighter pilot. You'll meet him after the break. But we're going to be talking about jobs in Oklahoma. Are we in trouble on jobs? Are we doing well on jobs? Are there jobs available or not? And if so, how does one acquire a job? So we're going to be talking about that today. So sit back. We'll see you in a couple of minutes, and we'll introduce you to Jim Farris. You're watching The Verdict.
I like the idea of improvisation and starting with not a preconceived idea. All of my work is about visual images taken from my memory. I'm Brenda Kingery. I am an artist and I'm a proud Chickasaw. One time I said, "Oh God, please don't let me die with my paintings in the closet." And what I would want them to be is everywhere. I would want them to be loved, to be used, to be respected. You work your whole life doing this. You just keep going as long as you can. And I have such a good background with a 106-year-old grandmother that I've always thought in my mind I would just paint till I am 106. My Chickasaw heritage has become a primary part of my life. And the reason is, it's a place I call home.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofenation.com.
And welcome back. We're glad you joined us again after that break. I'm going to introduce now our guest with a great deal of pleasure. James Farris is the Chief Executive Officer of James Farris Associates. Jim has had an Oklahoma association for life. He grew up in Altus, Oklahoma, left the state to go to college at the University of Virginia, where he graduated and is still affiliated through the Alumni Association. He, after college, went into the Air Force, where he was a fighter pilot and distinguished himself there. Following his Air Force service, he engaged in a banking career in Virginia, and we'll let him talk a little bit more about that as he wants. But he's now settled in Oklahoma and has been for a while in Oklahoma City, assisting folks in basically three areas: finding jobs, dealing with folks who have been laid off and folks who want jobs, and then dealing in generally human resource management. We're going to talk about all those things, but it's really a pleasure to me to welcome to the set of The Verdict for his first visit, Jim Farris. Jim, welcome.
Thanks, Kent. It's good to see you again, as always.
Well, it is good to see you. I can say Jim has helped us in the prior years finding leadership in some organizations that I'm involved with. And by the way, everybody that you found us has just been terrific.
Perfect.
Talk about your background a little bit. I only briefly covered it, but tell our viewers a little bit more about Jim Farris.
Well, I'm about as native and Okie as you can possibly be. My parents, grandparents, great-grandparents all grew up out around McAllister.
For some reason I thought it was Altus.
Well, that's where I was born.
Oh, okay.
I was born in Altus, primarily because my father was a career Air Force officer. I got to be a native Okie only because we happened to be here when it happened. I was born on Altus Air Force Base.
Yes.
In fact, my godfather was George Goebel. If you've ever seen any of those stunts about him protecting Oklahoma, that's when I was born.
I'll be darned.
But then I went to the University of Virginia, as you said, to undergraduate and graduate school. Got out, went in the Air Force, flew airplanes for about 5 years, a little more, and then was recruited by the Wachovia Corporation to come into their training program.
A banking industry in North Carolina.
Yeah, a very large
basically.
financial institution with offices all over the world.
Yeah.
And worked my way up till I was the Vice President of Human Resources, was recruited to Oklahoma, and came here as an Executive Vice President at First National Corporation, which was the largest bank in the state at the time. Left in the early 80s, I guess it was, and started this company, and have been doing HR consulting ever since.
That was a pretty good time to leave.
It was a
early
good time.
80s.
They were still the largest bank and blowing and going at the time, but everything went down rapidly after that. In fact, they've probably had like 4 or 5 name changes since the old First National days.
Well, what about the human resources type of work was attractive to you? Why did you get involved in that?
You know, Kent, I don't know that I've got a great answer for that. I think the good Lord's been looking out at me after me for a long time. Certainly got me through the flying career, because I had several hundred combat missions in Vietnam. But I started as a trainee. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then in working our way through the various areas of the bank in our training program, they kept wanting to stick me into something financially oriented, the investment department, the analysis department. And somehow I was lucky enough to talk my way out of that. My first real job was heading up all college recruiting for the corporation. And then that led into HR, which was the perfect fit for me. So I like to think that I was smart enough to jump on board, but the right door opened and I was able to go through it. And some of those skills and the way I got my career started, I think, are generic when we're working with people now on how they're going to change their career or find a new job, those sort of things.
Well, having been through it, that must equip you pretty well to advise others about it.
Exactly.
The do's and don'ts.
Both, yes.
Yeah. Well, tell me about your return to Oklahoma. That was when?
It was in the very late 70s.
So right before Penn Square Bank.
In fact, it happened all pretty quickly there together. When I first started doing what I do, it was still the boom area. And so things were real well. It wasn't very far into that Penn Square failed, and we went into the big bust area, which lasted for a while.
And it was in the early 80s that you started your human resource management firm?
Exactly.
Okay. Let's talk generally about the 2-word phrase, job market. Are there various kinds of job markets in communities?
Well, I mean, there really are, according to what you want to do, what your specialty is, and those kind of things. In Oklahoma right now, if you're trying to be or want to get into the oil and gas industry, it's probably not a prime time because, as you all read in the newspaper, here on the radio, TV, programs like this, there's been a pretty dramatic restructuring of most of the major oil companies, and certainly therefore all the smaller ones are going through the same thing.
As our weathermen say all too frequently, in other words, there's more outflow than inflow.
Certainly in the oil and gas industry.
Yeah.
But fortunately for us, our forefathers, Mick and the people before him, Kirk and Ron and everybody else, started as a result of the bust that took place in the mid-'80s to diversify what our economy is now. If what's going on now happened the same way it did in the 80s, I think we'd be in severe trouble here.
Yeah.
But because of the diversification of our economy now, even in spite of all the hundreds of people that have been riffed out of the oil business, the hiring side of things is still very strong. I think the last numbers I saw from the state were that our unemployment was running about 3.9. There may have been a new one since then, but supposedly full employment's about 4.3. And
Wow.
so there are a lot of good jobs out there, but there's a huge difference than it was 3 years ago, where everybody's recruiting and growing because of the oil business. you've got to really be attacking the job market, and you've got to be prepared to do it. There are not going to be many people just knocking on your door trying to get you to go to work for them right now.
Are there differences in the job market generally between Oklahoma City on one hand, Tulsa on the other, and the rest of the state on the third hand?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think right now, from what I see, the Oklahoma City job market is probably the best in the state. And I really attributed that to a lot of more psychological reasons than anything else.
Yeah.
We've got a more positive attitude here. People are more upbeat. Diversification, all the MAPS projects. I mean, there's a lot of good news coming out all the time. Tulsa, I think, is a little bit behind on that, but I think they're changing because they're starting to get more with the Oklahoma City attitude on how to change things. Once you get outside of those two major cities, then things start getting a little more less positive, I guess is a good word for it.
Well,
but many of those communities, though, by the way, have been commuting to Oklahoma City or Tulsa or places like that. I mean, I was doing a project in Shawnee Monday. A little bit of a downsizing is taking place, and we were talking to people, and over 3/4 of the people that I was talking to worked in Oklahoma City but lived there. So a lot of commuting.
From a standpoint of the percentage of your business, James Farris and Associates business, is most of it in Oklahoma City, or emanating from Oklahoma City?
It is right now, Kent. We've got clients from Canada to Florida. I just happen to want to live here. And when we've had the big boys, try to buy us, might have been a good financial move, but then they want me to go run the Chicago office or DC, and I'm not leaving.
Well, we don't want you to.
And so we, I guess probably the last several years, we've been so busy in Oklahoma that I've not had to go out Monday morning, get on the plane, and come back Fridays like I used to in the old days. And I hope our economy keeps this way, because I'd just as soon not have all those travel miles.
We got to get to a break. We're visiting with James Farris, Human Resource Management Specialist here in Oklahoma City. You're watching The Verdict. We'll be right back.
It's astonishing to think food production needs to double over the next 30 years to handle population growth. Thankfully, technologies and innovations made possible with oil and natural gas compounds are making nutritious crops more plentiful than ever. It's our generation's turn to help solve worldwide challenges. Let's imagine new ways to give Oklahoma's oil and natural gas even more purpose.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
We're back. We're visiting with James Farris of James Farris and Associates, a human resource management consulting expert here in Oklahoma City with strong Oklahoma ties and doing his work out of Oklahoma City, but doing it nationwide. Jim, when we took a break, we hadn't yet talked about your firm specifically, and I'd like to do that now. Can you kind of pigeonhole or segment the areas where your firm works?
Sure, I know HR consulting or management can mean 1,000 different things, but we do primarily 3 different things. One is we're a search firm. Companies hire us to find new employees.
Okay.
We're not in the resume shuffling business. I mean, everything we do is totally confidential. I mean, if you came to see me, I'm not going to ship your resume around until we've got something you're interested in. And our corporate clients know that we're not going to be running around saying, hey, XYZ is looking for this. We keep everything confidential. The second thing we do, we call outplacement. When companies are going through a downsize and a RIF, terminations, whatever, they can bring us in to help those affected employees get through the trauma and the transition. We write their resumes, we put them through seminars and counseling on how to figure out what they want to do next, how to get in front of the right people, how to negotiate, how to answer the trick questions in job interviews, basically A to Z on how to find a new job in the marketplace. And then the third thing is just pure consulting and HR things. So if a company needs help with performance evaluation, salary administration, policy and procedures, anything having to do with kind of the HR back room, if you will.
Well, let's take each one individually and kind of break it out a little more completely. Start with the search aspect of your firm. About, if you can, and take any time period you want, but what % of your business is spent in the search area?
Well,
or can you
it's
do
kind of
that?
an interesting question because it's really got a lot to do with what the economy is. We may be a better economic indicator than some of the economic indicators. When search is really busy, the economy is usually doing well. When we're doing a lot more downsizing, that means the economy is sort of weak. And so we're kind of positioned well to take advantage of whatever
They
the
need you
marketplace.
either way.
Exactly. But we're more interested in the relationship with the organization than we are just that project. I mean, my philosophy has always been you're only as good as your next piece of business, so you want to try to do as good a job as you can. Typically, I would say right now we're probably, I'd say 40, 50% search, maybe 30, 35% outplacement, and then somewhere probably around 20 or so in HR consulting. And the companies that use us more for HR consulting tend to be a smaller organization that doesn't have a professional HR staff, but they want to have a quality program, and so they would use us to supplement that. Some larger companies bring us in because they want a neutral third party to look at some things and help get a determination on different projects.
So your search activities, that first segment you identified, would it typically be that a corporation or a business is your client?
Exactly.
And they say, we need to hire 50 folks in the Oklahoma City area or Tulsa area or whatever it may be. What can you do for us? How do you carry out that search?
Well,
what do you do?
It'd be nice if we had people say they need 50 all the time. That doesn't happen very often. Usually it's more onesie or twosies.
Yeah.
But our job is to go into the company, try to find out even their company culture, what it takes to be successful there, get to know the people that they're going to be working with, the people they're going to be reporting to. Our job is to get to know the organization.
Do you go visit the
Oh,
organization?
definitely. We would not undertake a search without doing that.
And are, on occasion, the organization's not located in Oklahoma?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so we think fit is the right thing because we guarantee our people once they're hired. And there's nothing worse in my business than have somebody fail after 3 or 4 months and have to do it over again.
What do you mean you guarantee them?
That if they aren't successful in the job for X amount of time, we're going to replace them for free.
Ah.
And so we work really hard at making sure that fits right, both skill set, personality, all those kind of things.
But how do you find the folks that you're searching for? I mean, what tools
Well, it's probably
do you use?
part of the trade secrets. I know a lot of firms that don't operate the way we do, put an ad in the paper, or on Jobs OK or LinkedIn searches, those kind of things. And my philosophy is, it has proven out over the years, that if you're advertising for people to come to work for you, about 85 to 90% of the people that are reading want ads, and that includes internet, whatever, but the people that are reading want ads fall into one of two categories. Either they're unhappy where they are, or where they are unhappy with them. That's the reason they're reading want ads. What we're looking for is the guy that's doing a good job somewhere, or the girl, a guy, generic term with me, that's doing a good job somewhere, and we're trying to identify them and offer them a better opportunity, if you will. Sometimes we run into somebody who's a number 2 person in some job, wherever they are, and know they aren't going to be number 1 unless number 1 is run over by a truck or something happens.
You don't offer that service.
We don't do that. But we do offer that other person a chance to come to us confidentially and say, if this kind of position comes along, Jim, we would like to be involved in that process. And, you know, fortunately, and thank the good Lord, we've been doing this long enough, and I think we've got a good enough reputation that people come to us that don't need a job. They particularly may not even want one right now, but they want to be queued up, that if the right thing does come along, that we know who they are. And so
they want to be in your files.
Yes. And they know that what we do is confidential. We're not going to shop their resume, those kind of things.
Okay. Well, let's talk about outplacement. The folks that have been RIF'd, or
exactly,
folks without a military background. That's a military term for reduction in force.
Exactly.
But the folks that have been laid off, if you will, for a better description. What do you do there? If John Smith has had 15 years in a particular company and is laid off and seeks you out, what do you do at that point? Well,
the first thing is, most of the time, 99% of the time, it's the company that seeks us out because they want to help John.
Expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, we're hired by the company to help the individuals that have been affected. And for several reasons. One reason may be that they really do care about people and want to try to help John. 2 may be that it's kind of a CYA sort of thing. They want to do the right thing so that John doesn't come back at them legally. The third reason, the one I think should be the most predominant, is you want to send a message to the rest of your company that we had to make a tough decision here and let John go for whatever reason. But we really do care about people. And so, Kent, we want you to keep your head down, keep working. If something should happen that it's going to affect your position, we're going to take care of you too. I've actually seen companies that didn't want to provide outplacement, and I've seen a couple companies fail and a couple come very close, because when you do that, everybody's sitting around and says, hey, did you see what happened to John? I better get my resume updated, and the next time somebody wants to talk to me, I'd better listen, because they've proven I've got to take care of myself. They're not going to do that. And the people you lose aren't your average performers and down, it's your average performers and up, because they're employable in any job market.
Let's switch gears. We only have about a minute left.
Okay.
Let's talk just for about 30 seconds on your human resource management services that you make available to employers.
Well, and that's primarily a company that maybe doesn't have a professional or a large HR department, and they need help reviewing their policy and procedures, or writing position descriptions, or doing whatever that's kind of the backroom HR stuff, and they would like to have a very professional firm come in and do that, or audit what they do to make sure that they are doing it correct, those sort of things.
Jim, we are out of time, but thank you so much for coming and telling our viewers about what you do and what's going on in Oklahoma. Things that could, if you just paid attention to the press, you could get kind of depressed about the job situation in Oklahoma, but I think a fair summary of what you've said, it is not quite that bad.
Exactly.
There's some pluses as well as minuses. We're very, very pleased today to have Jim Farris with us. We're going to take a break. You're watching The Verdict.
There are now 11 million of us who live here and work here. I was 15 when I came here 6 years ago. I raised my family here. I drive my truck to my job every day. The only difference between now and 6 years ago, I do it legally. I wanted to. Because this is my home.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
The arts promote creativity, enrich education, and inspire innovation. The arts have played a key role in our Renaissance, transforming our neighborhoods and our cities. Oklahoma is an even more beautiful and thriving place to live thanks to our arts community. We need your help to make sure that we don't slow down now. Can you make a donation today? Don't wait. Give to Allied Arts and make a difference in your community. AlliedArtsOKC.com.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
We've been very pleased today to bring to you Jim Farris of James Farris Associates. If you want to be in touch with Jim, his website is www.jamesfarris.com. I know he'd be glad to hear from you if you're interested in visiting about anything personal to you. On a personal note, I want to take this minute that we have left to congratulate my partner of 15 years, Mick Cornett, on his ascension, if you will, as to the presidency of the Oklahoma Conference of Mayors, or the National Conference of Mayors, first Oklahoman ever to have that position. And I'm just thrilled for him, and I think it's great for Oklahoma. Next week, we'll be back with another exciting guest. Thanks for watching The Verdict.